Hello, everyone, and welcome to our project. Have you ever asked yourself what is the relationship between misogyny and behavior? Well, we are here to answer it.
Musical discourse is one of the vehicles that generate changes in people. Reggaeton can have an impact on people's thoughts, culture, and values. The problem with reggaeton lies mainly in the message it symbolizes with its lyrics, a message full of misogyny and negative values. But what can you understand when we say misogyny, and why is that related to negative values? Well, by misogyny, we mean all the hateful behaviors towards women that manifest themselves through cruel and violent acts against them. It is a lifestyle that represents a potential danger for women, young people, and people who are influenced by a reality that can easily adjust to the social context in which they live. Penagos Rojas confirms this by saying reggaeton promotes the loss of moral and personal values, the transgression of social codes, encourages sex, and turns women into a sexual object. Symbolic violence in reggaeton. Due to the constant sexism present in its lyrics, that is, the representation of women not as a subject but as an object of consumption and male advantage through the representation, through the sexualization and appropriation of their bodies, humiliating them and making them feel guilty for exploring their sexuality. Reggaeton has become a genre that has a repercussion in our society across the symbolic violence that it is implied in its lyrics. Bourdieu defines symbolic violence as mental schemas that serve as an initial perception for the individual and are reproduced as part of a natural structure. It is not surprising then that such sexist and misogynist lyrics are accepted, normalized, and perpetuated by our society as they have been since the beginning of this musical genre. Even though denigrates and perpetuates violence against women, since the content of the lyrics usually focuses on aggressive behavior and negative values, reggaeton continues to be one of the most popular music genres today. As we can see in this example of a Spotify playlist called Mansión Reggaeton. Here we can notice how massive and supported reggaeton is, not only in South America, also all around the world.
Music, reggaeton, and society. Music itself has had a huge influence in our society, and that is why Rebolledo in their article state that music is a cultural phenomenon, and it can reflect problems evidently present in our society. So, for a better understanding, a little bit of context. Reggaeton was born in Panama in 1918 when Jamaican workers traveled to help build the Panama Canal and reggae was adapted to Spanish-speaking culture. The themes changed from Black identity to where it's listened nowadays, a marketable reggaeton made to appeal the white population, even when it can denigrate and perpetuate violence against women. Reggaeton is a musical genre that hits Latin American culture, using an explicit language that talks about sex while denigrate women and show a severe lack of vocabulary. Moreover, if we pay attention to the language variation that reggaeton songs use in its lyrics, we can identify to whom they are appealing. Sadly, I am talking about the poorest part of the population, illiterate and not well educated. In this country, Chile, those sections are called Las Poblas. Anyways, the problem that this video will discuss mainly is reggaeton and misogynistic behaviors. Because if we took away the music in reggaeton songs, only the harassment remains. And this is the perfect example. This is a song called Picky, released in 2016 by a singer called Joey Montana. And in Spanish, the lyric says, si yo le saco por la izquierda, se va para la derecha, no sé lo que le pasa, conmigo ya requiere bailar. And in English, if I go out to the left, she goes to the right. I don't know what's wrong with me. She does not want to dance. This is an example of a man not realizing that a woman doesn't want to dance with him, and he insists and puts pressure on her. And we're back again in the first point again. Music is a reflection from our society, and Mariani Sanchez, a researcher from the Especialidades Feministas group at the Pontificia Universidad Javeriana in Colombia, confirms it by saying, reggaeton succeeds because it doesn't show anything new, anything that doesn't exist. It takes a social phenomenon that is sexism and gives the form of music. And it's worrying because the lyrics of the songs perpetuates the power difference between women and men. Men are the ones who have power. Men are the ones who are the consumers, while women are objects of consumption and not as someone or as somebody, but as something.
Musicians like Pailita, Bad Bunny, or Marcianeque have been really popular the last century, especially in Latin America. But have you ever asked how does reggaeton in general or these musicians affect your brain? Well, there was an investigation that scientists did. It was called Music Style Not Only Modulates the Auditory Cortex, but also the motor related areas. So how they did this experiment was aggregating 28 people from different parts of the country and different ages, and they made them listen to type of music. So one of them was reggaeton, of course, and for reggaeton they used the song "Shaky" by Daddy Yankee, and they use classic music. And for classic music they use music by Vivaldi. So these people were listening to this music, and what they noticed was that reggaeton evokes more brain activity. And here in this scan, it's very obvious how reggaeton in this side have more brain activity or more brain stimulation. And they also noticed that listen to reggaeton increase the ability to perform a cognitive or physiological task. And what was really interesting to see was that reggaeton create a graded activation in the brain regions responsible for processing sounds and movement. So that's why it's very easy for us to tend to move our bodies when we're listening to reggaeton. And that's why reggaeton is made for dance, because the sound and the rhythm that reggaeton has create a graded activation in that region of the brain, and it is more easy for us to move. Something that one of the scientists said was Jesus Martinez Fernandez, And he said what caught our attention was the activation of a primitive region of the brain, which is the basal ganglia. So in this scan, we can see the basal ganglia is this area. And what is the basal ganglia? Well, basal ganglia is the responsible of modulating posture. It's the responsible of starting and ending a movement. But what was really interesting is that the basal ganglia is the responsible of the pleasure system. So we know that the pleasure system is connected to how dopamine is increased in our brain. So every time that we receive this dopamine from reggaeton, we are receiving pleasure as well. So it's really interesting to notice and to be able to understand the effects that reggaeton has in our brain. So it's not only effect, but also the repercussions. And what is really, really interesting is how the lyrics of the songs are related to what we receive in our brain and how this connection creates certain patterns in the way that we talk or the way that we um, we perceive women in specifically. So now with the lyric analysis, we will see how this the letter of the music it's really really connected of the way that we act.
In this part, we will analyze the lyrics. As it was previously explained, there are some artists that keep perpetuating the misogynistic message that reggaeton has since its beginning. Let's analyze a few songs released not so long ago. In the first instance, let's check the lyrics of Titi me preguntó. Tengo una colombiana que me escribe todos los días y una mexicana que ni yo sabía, otra en San Antonio que me quiere todavía y las de PR que toditas son mías. In this strophe is clear how Bad Bunny proclaims that he owns these women. In other words, objectifying them. In other part, ya me aburrí, hoy quiero un totito inédito, uno nuevo, uno nuevo, uno nuevo. In this part of the song, it can be seen again, objectifying women and reducing them to a body part, like a piece of meat. But Bad Bunny isn't the only one who still perpetuates this behavior. So do Chris MJ and Marcianeque in their song Los Malveques. De la disco voy a llevarme una muñeca, todas las que me tiro ahora tienen implante, quedo loco en mi lista, puro booty gigante. This part of the song Los Malveques clearly express how the singers see women as objects, in this case as a doll, and how they see that the most important part of being with a woman is their body, giving importance to things like a big ass or an implant, not only objectifying the body of a woman, but also giving insecurities to other kinds of bodies. In Pam, a song by Daddy Yankee, El Alfa, and Justin Quiles, the lyric says, está más buena que Dua Lipa, una lipo pa la tipa, pa que quede mamacita, shows how the singers compare and later insinuate how the women that they're talking about should have an operation to be better for themselves as if they had power over her. In La Jipeta, remix by Neo Garcia, Anuel AA, and Mike Towers, the lyric says, conmigo una rubia tiene grande las tetas, quiere que se lo meta, ¿por qué no hacemos una porno como Ozuna? It is expressed how the singers know that the blonde girl that he is with wants to have sex with him as an assumption because in none of the parts it is actually stated by a woman that this statement is true. There is no consent. Then they talk about a porn video from Ozuna making a reference about a video of this singer and again insinuating that the woman wants to have sex with the singer.
Also taking evidence from the polemic topic of porn and how it is a misogynistic and violent industry and how porn shows an unrealistic idea of sex and women's body. Finally, to sum up, in different songs with different artists, it is shown the misogynistic view that these people have with women, especially with women that they like. These examples show how the singers see women as objects or how they want to change things from their bodies, or how porn has a heavy influence in how they see women's sex life and the superiority of men, showing the new generations a wrong image of how to treat women, how to have power over women, or even how to choose women based on their bodies.
Even in the most famous songs over the years, we can see the presence of symbolic violence and sexualization of women. So, no matter how disrespectful or explicit the song is, it will probably end up becoming a hit. But this doesn't happen only with songs. It is surprising how supported the songwriters of most of some of the most misogynistic and sexist songs are. With 61 million monthly listeners, Bad Bunny is the 10th most listened artist in the world. We have J Balvin with 49 million monthly listeners. And to give you a closer example, the Chilean artist Marcianique with 3 million monthly listeners. This explains a lot about how invisible and normalized is symbolic violence, especially in situations and everyday aspects such as music.
Well, Dolores Fernandez considered that the students not only go to school to learn about math, science, or a second language. We, as teachers, must be in charge of giving them all the tools that we can have to make them critical citizens. Because even when they are young, they will be the people who will generate social changes. For this reason, the pedagogical approach that we can give to our research is critical thinking. Teachers can customize the classes in order to near the reality of the students with the subjects or contents. In this case, knowing that Chile is a big consumer of reggaeton music, we can create spaces in the classroom for students to discuss the messages of reggaeton. They can do it in groups and analyze the lyrics, or individually, they can relate one of the main topics or issues of reggaeton, like misogyny, drugs, gangs, and make a critical memo in which they can construct posture and communicate it. Also, we can show them a video and comment on it as a class. I know this is very challenging when we put the focus in schools because they have a low level of English, but there's nothing wrong doing it in Spanish. So, how can we help our students to be more critical? The first step is evidencing some of the issues of the lyrics. Here I have a fragment of Esclava by Brian Myers. And in this phrase, we have 3 different sentences with 3 different issues: sexualization, drugs, and violence. The second step, and the most important step, is questioning. We must ask questions to our students to increase critical thinking. In this case, we take an issue and ask them, is that common or isn't it? if it is common. Is it right? That's how we can make them question things. Therefore, the main goal of boosting critical thinking in students is not only to observe what is the message of a song, but also to analyze other situations that could be present in daily life. For example, what does one to say in an internet message or an email or an article, to help them to construct their own posture of that. In addition, Sandra Soler told us that as a society, we are learning more about gender equality, and teaching it in schools is the great importance to letting students question gender roles and constantly discuss what can we do to give solutions to it. So thank you for your attention, and I invite you to learn more about this topic on the platform. Bye.